49ers Web Zone No Huddle podcast, part of the Odyssey Network. I'm Al Sacco with Brian Renick. And if you're a 49ers fan or a fan of sports in the Bay Area, this voice will be a very familiar one. He is a legend in Bay Area radio, and you can catch him now on his YouTube station, Damon Bruce Plus. One and only Damon Bruce. Damon, thanks for being with us, buddy.
Al, thank you very much. Your introduction was way too kind. Brian, good to be with you. Guys, thanks so much for having me. It's good to see you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you, Damon. And this has been a fun season so far for the Niners. There was a little bit of drama coming in the offseason, and then you had the Bosa holdout, and you're like, where is this going to go? And from the minute that whistle hit in week one, it's just been guns blazing for this team. And you've seen a lot of 49ers football over the years, and we've been talking about just how good the current version of this team is. It's not really fair to compare them to any of the teams that won the Super Bowl. But when you look back at the Harbaugh years and now with this current regime, where do you think this team ranks in those more recent teams, 2011 through about now?
Look, all we can do is operate in the vacuum we're sitting in, right? And since I've been covering the 49ers, I can't remember a better, healthier, the way the league has broken around them, as dominant as they've been, quality of opponent that they've played. I can't remember a better 4-0 start. Not for Kyle Shanahan, not really for anyone. This just feels like a season that a lot of people have the highest of expectations for. You couldn't have even had this high of expectation for the start to the year. I mean, it's pretty much been flawless, but for, maybe a half in Los Angeles when the Rams kind of did what they wanted to do offensively, and then adjustments were made at halftime and everything was okay in that game too. I mean, they are operating on a level of offense that is essentially unprecedented in team history. A defense that is still under construction with a new defensive coordinator, trying to figure out who fits where. And that seems to be ahead of schedule, although some would say it still isn't. It's a pretty good looking defensive unit to me. And special teams are, I think, the legitimate concern coming into the year. Well, it's squashed those concerns. You got Wisnowski, who is just coughing cornering everyone inside the 20-yard line. And you got a rookie kicker that everyone was conditioned to be worried about, and he hasn't missed a kick yet, point after touchdown or field goal. So it's been an exemplary start. And again, the key is health. This is a healthy 4-0 Niner team, and that makes them dangerous.
Yeah, sorry, Brian. I think too with this team, you look at the Garoppolo years, they kind of had trouble scoring. There's a lot of 20 to 13 games and a lot of games that maybe were closer than they should have been. And you had the Pete Kaepernick years, which were good because Kaepernick didn't really know what to do with him at first, and that defense was so strong. But I just feel now with this team, this iteration of it, you have an offense that's scoring 30 points every single week and a defense that I don't even think is at their stride yet. And they're probably going to give up in the 15-point range. You put that together, it just seems like it's the most dangerous team to me they've had in a while. And it's kind of like Super Bowl or bust, I think, right now.
You're going to win an awful lot of games scoring about 30, holding everyone else to about 15. It's just that simple. I was never a math major, but that is an overwhelming point differential. And when you start seeing a team do that regularly, that's when you start dreaming big. And I think the 49ers fans, even unreasonable 49ers fans, have the right to be dreaming big 4 weeks in. I was talking to another channel just the other day and was asked, where's the iceberg going to come from? And I really don't know. I mean, I don't know. It could be an injury. It could be a losing streak. It could be something going wrong. Who the hell knows? But right now, we got Leo and Kate at the front of the king of the world. Everyone's feeling so good about what they see. But there's an iceberg out there somewhere. And hopefully Kyle Shanahan is enough of a captain to steer this team around that. And if he does, I mean, yeah, they look like a team that should be hosting an NFC title game right now.
Arguably, you would say that of the Kyle Shanahan teams in the past, including 2019, where they made it to the Super Bowl, that iceberg was their starting quarterback. And in the NFL, obviously, starting quarterback play is king. If you've got a guy that can operate your offense, you're likely going to be in a much better position than a lot of teams that we've seen right now who have had some pretty poor quarterback play, including poor quarterback play from guys that we expected to be really good. And specifically, I'm thinking Joe Burrow. But, you know, it seems like Kyle Shanahan has found the right guy to run his system in Brock Purdy. Have you been surprised by the level at which he's been able to operate this offense this year, knowing that he's coming off that elbow injury and knowing that he was the last pick in the draft, a rookie last year? You know, quarterbacks can get on a heater, and he was absolutely on one, but it has continued into this year. Has he exceeded your expectations? Is this what you thought, or what are your thoughts on Purdy?
He's exceeded his own mother's expectations. I mean, let's be totally honest. This is an unprecedented start for the 49ers for any quarterback, regardless of draft position. You factor in Purdy's draft position, it just turns it into a Disney movie. To me, everything in sports is a collection of data points, and you got to know what are the important data points and what are the less important data points. What do you really need to concentrate on? What do you need to throw away because it doesn't matter as much? All of the important data points are coming back. This guy can play. Forget about his salary. Forget about his pedigree. Forget about where he was drafted. This guy has data points that are as robust as some of the highest paid, most respected quarterbacks in this league right now. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. I'm terrible at the projection business. I don't know where this goes. Football, all professional sports, it's a very fickle thing, can be there one day and gone the next for a number of reasons. And like you said, Brian, off-season surgery on an elbow after a huge rookie year, like that's even a worse way to start your second year than being a Mr. Irrelevant was to start your first year. And so we keep on moving the starting line back for this guy, and he's on the lead lap no matter what. It's remarkable. It's really remarkable. I can't think of anything that is like it other than, you know, you start talking about, well, you know, Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round, and, you know, Kurt Warner was bagging groceries. Like, it's that much of an unbelievable starting point. Still an awful lot of career in front of him, an awful lot of season in front of him this year. But look, Kyle Shanahan and company just have to be thrilled with what they're seeing from this guy. And again, it's awfully rough times for Trey Lance salesmen on the internet these days. And it's not, you know, me trying to dunk on anyone. It's football reality just showing you what the hell is actually really going on with the 49ers or not. I mean, this is extraordinary. And to not being able to recognize it as extraordinary is ridiculous. I don't know where it ends, but I've never seen a beginning quite like this.
Yeah, and people can get toxic with that. They just kind of get a favorite player. It was toxic with the Jimmy Trey stuff, and then it got toxic with the Trey and the Brock stuff. And you're right. If you're looking at kind of we always talk about the reality of the situation on the show. And if you were looking at the reality, I mean, it was clear as day that this guy in Brock was the starting quarterback. They were going to roll with him. He had earned it. Kyle, saw on film, he's like an extension of Kyle. And here we are. We're seeing
it's real simple. Everything that had nothing to do with the actual football game said, this isn't your guy. You know, look at the draft capital. Look at this guy's physical attributes and blah, 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 blah. But then, like, when it turns Sunday and you're playing football, there's nothing to discuss. I mean, the man hasn't lost not once on a Sunday yet in the regular season. Like, what more would you like than that? A 14-game winning streak going back to last year that even predates him coming aboard, honestly, as quarterback. But it's incredible to see what has happened so quickly for a guy who just seems to be, as you're saying, wired to be the perfect fit for Shanahan. It's this egoless, yes, chef approach. And that's what Kyle wants to hear. Kyle just wants someone to do what he says to do, yet have the physical ability to improvise should that situation arise. And I just think that Purdy's done a great job showing Kyle he can do both. And, oh, by the way, let's not leave this out. Christian fricking McCaffrey makes all of it look easier. All of it.
That's where I was going to go next. So
yeah.
They make this trade last year, and what were they, 3-4 when they made the trade? Looked like things were a little bit shaky, and we were talking about the ESPN grade, last show, Brian, right, where they gave them a C-, maybe because of the injuries he had. You knew the talent McCaffrey had, but what he's done since then has been, I mean, maybe the best offensive player since T.O. You can even maybe argue Jerry Rice from what he's done statistically. Where were you when they traded for him? What were your initial thoughts, and why do you think he's been such a good fit?
Big gamble. And I thought, in a world that we've all been conditioned to be brushed back by high running back salaries, I thought, boy, is this a right way for a team that is looking to build robust talent everywhere to sink so much into a position that could be hurt overnight and blah, 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 blah. And I forgot that totally, running backs matter. Like, great running backs matter. And I keep coming back to this, gentlemen. I'm apologizing if you've heard me say this before, but I really mean it. Christian McCaffrey, to me, is a revelation the same way Kevin Durant was. Like, I knew he was good. I knew Kevin Durant was good, but I had no idea the degree of greatness until I got to see him every game, every night in a Warriors uniform. I knew Christian McCaffrey at Stanford was really good, and I knew at Carolina he was very good, but you can't appreciate how good this guy is until you see the stuff that doesn't make the highlight tape. Like 2nd and 7, middle of the field, and he picks up 8 yards every time. Christian McCaffrey helps this team avoid third down because he's just a human chain mover, and he's running so violently, and he's got stiff arms for everybody. And I had no idea. I knew he was good. I didn't realize that we're talking about a first ballot Hall of Famer should he stay healthy. That's where Christian McCaffrey's going. He will be a first ballot Hall of Famer if he continues to play like this.
Yeah, not only is Christian McCaffrey a first down machine, but you've got Debo, you've got Kittle, and then you've got Brandon Ayuk, who has 17 receptions this season. All of them have been for either a first down or a touchdown. Like, this offense is just operating at a level that we haven't seen. But let's be real. The Cowboys come to town on Sunday, and this is the biggest test that this team has seen all season. And, in the Cowboys' 3 wins, they've outscored the Giants, Jets, and Pats 108-13. Granted, I believe against both the Patriots and the Giants, there were 2 defensive touchdowns in there, which you can't take away, but that's still impressive. But then they played the Cardinals, and the Cardinals, I mean, the Cowboys had some injuries, specifically on the offensive line. It was the week that Trayvon Diggs for the season to an ACL tear, but that was the only piece that was missing on defense. And the Cardinals ran up 222 yards on the ground against them and controlled the game in a victory that they won 28-16, a team that the 49ers just beat 35-16. So do you see the Niners just leaning on CMC and the ground game to try and control the game? Or do you think that they're not even worried about controlling the game? They just are worried about going out, playing their game, and knowing if we play our game and we're on the details, that there's no one that's beating us.
So Kyle's a control freak, right? Like, he wants to control everything and every element, and you control football games by running it. If it were the Dallas Cowboys, it wouldn't matter. If it were the 0-4 Vikings, it wouldn't. Kyle wants to run the ball, just straight up, period. He has a hard on for it. It's what he does. He loves establishing play action pass, where again, Brandon Ayuk is now catching balls for only first downs and touchdowns. and that's what Kyle wants to do. So he's going to want to do that against anybody, but especially a team that is as good and as threatening and as much of a quality opponent as you're going to run into all season long. The Dallas Cowboys are good. The Dallas Cowboys were good enough to make the playoffs 2 years in a row, and the 49ers have sent them home 2 years in a row, and that's because I believe the 49ers are better, and they are beat. They're built to beat the Cowboys because of that running game, because of what James Conner just did. I mean, James Conner got loose around the tackles. And if Christian McCaffrey is doing that, if you're watching Debo take jet sweeps around the tackles, and it's a problem for the Cowboys, that's when the 49ers have not just a win on Sunday Night Football, but an impressive win. I mean, slow down Tony Pollard, keep an eye on Micah Parsons, make sure CeeDee Lamb doesn't have a monster game. And I don't know how Dallas does this without two of those three things happening. So I think the Niners are well built to beat the Cowboys. I do think the Cowboys are a touch overinflated in their dominance based on quality of opponent or lack thereof in their three overwhelming lopsided victories. And I think the 49ers are built to win this game 9 out of 10 times. And then when you put it, on their home field, now the Niners are built to win this game like 19 out of 20 times. I like their chances an awful lot. That, forget about point spreads, forget about all that stuff, just straight up. Do the 49ers win on Sunday night? I think the answer is yes. There's a lot of precedent there. When Kyle has ownage over certain coaches, and you can ask Sean McVay about this, it tends to be a pattern. And Kyle has ownage over McCarthy. He really does. So I like the Niners' chances an awful lot in this game. And then, as I said, the reason why I like the beginning of this year for the 49ers is because all of a sudden games that you circled as holy shit games at the beginning of the year are less holy shit games right now. Going to Cleveland before you take on the Bengals, like those look like two totally different things right now as when opposed to the schedule came out. So it's all breaking the way for the 49ers. Not only are they playing great, but the rest of the league around them seems to be, coming back to them in a direction they would like to be approached. So it's just a great start. I mean, really, I know that just sunshine and happy rainbows and pots of gold is not compelling content for some people. But I did a whole show today, and the premise was if you can't appreciate the roses while they're still growing, you shouldn't even be in the gardening business. If all you appreciate is the bouquet at the end, you don't really know what you're focusing on. This is, again, who is Brock Purdy? I don't know who Brock Purdy is going to be, but right now, to this point in time, he's had more team success early on in his career than Joe Montana, than Steve Young, than Peyton Manning, than all the greats. I mean, it's ridiculous, the data points that are being thrown at us, and instead of figuring out a way to prove them false, what if they're right? like, what if they're right? What if this really is the beginning of something that is incredibly special going forward for a few years here? I mean, to hold Kyle Shanahan's feet to the fire as well, he hasn't won a Super Bowl. Well, look, only 26 living men on the planet have won Super Bowls. These things are hard. They're elusive. Every other data point on Kyle's career, he's 46-24 since 2019, means this guy knows what he's doing. So if he's got a staff, a coaching staff who knows what he's doing, a quarterback who can execute his vision, about as talented a roster as you're going to find in football, while no one else in the league is playing extraordinary right now, I would even tell you that Philadelphia's 4-0 record could have some holes poked in it. They just look like the prettiest girl at the homecoming dance. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, and maybe it's the East Coast guy in me, but I tend to be a little bit pessimistic myself. Like, I could find something wrong with anything, and I'm right there with you right now. I'm just like, sit back and enjoy this. And you made a good point about when the season started, there are games that you circle, right? Like, oh shit, this one's going to be tough. And I had Dallas circled for that because for the same reasons the Niners are going to be up for Philly, Dallas is going to be up for this game. They knocked them out of the playoffs a couple years in a row.
Yep.
So I think they're going to come into this game and they're going to be pumped. But I also agree with you right now is like, I don't know that matters. And one of the keys for me is Dak. Now, frankly, in the two postseason games, Dak looked shook to me in both of those games. He didn't play super well. In 2021, he was 23 of 43, 53%, with a 69 rating. And last year, his rating was 63. He's thrown 3 interceptions in those two games. He's been sacked 6 times. He's a big key to me in this game. Do you see him bouncing back? Or like you said, do the Niners just kind of have his number?
Are the 49ers going to watch another offense just embrace getting it out in under 2 seconds? Because I think that's a real difference maker, right? Dak, to me, Cowboys football, maybe in my own mind, more than I could prove this to you statistically or with a pro football focus grade. But to me, like, Cowboys are a big passing play offense. Like, they're looking for a 5-7 step drop, survey the field, gut you with a big play. That's not who they've been at all this year. The Cowboys have been among the shortest air yards passing in all of football. Football is about trends, right? Bucking trends, embracing trends. And the trend right now is that ball is out on your by the time your heel hits the third step drop, the ball is gone. And that's what Dallas is doing this year. And that's why Dak has, I think, the fourth best completion percentage. Brock Purdy is number 3, by the way, in the NFL right now. But they have embraced the trend that is just get it out. So if that makes Dak more comfortable, is he then more dangerous? If he's not getting sacked 6 times, is he more dangerous? Of course he is. So will the different look Cowboys present a different problem? Maybe, which is why I go back to saying the job number 1 is just shutting down Tony Pollard, because whatever the Cowboys were going to do last December in that playoff game, or January, I guess I should say, they stopped doing immediately when Tony Pollard got hurt and left that game. So you keep Pollard in check, it just changes the dynamic. And any team that gets one-dimensional, that's a feast for the 49ers defensively. I don't care if you're getting the ball out at 2.5 Mississippi. They're coming.
Damon, we appreciate the time, buddy. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, thanks so much for having me, first of all. I know you guys got great followers and subscribers. Anyone who wanted to subscribe to Damon Bruce Plus, I would deeply appreciate that. There's a podcast as well, also called Damon Bruce Plus. You can find it anywhere you get your podcasts. You download that. My wife will stop yelling at me to go get a real job, and I'd really appreciate that if you could prevent that from happening. So thank you guys for having me. I hope this is the first of several conversations we get to have as the season goes along. It should be a really fun ride.
Absolutely. You got an open invitation, welcome, my friend. I appreciate it.
Welcome anytime.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
one, Damon.
All right, Brian. Good stuff as usual. Now, this matchup, these 2 teams are tied in all-time in their series. 19-19, including the playoffs.
Juicy.
So this is a big one. They're the only 2 teams in the NFC who are averaging over 30 points a game. Like you said, Dallas has been a lot of defensive scores within that. Damon brought up a good point where I think I want to start off kind of talking about this. He's talking about Dallas not doing the downfield throws and getting the ball out this year. I saw a stat. Prescott's average air yards per attempt are 5.5 right now, which is 33rd out of 34 quarterbacks. And his average time to pass is 2.49, which is the 4th fastest. So yeah, he's just getting the ball out. There's some injuries on the offensive line. I don't know as of right now, as of today, Zach Martin was banged up. Smith was banged up on the offensive line. So Dallas has got some issues there. I think they're going to try to get the ball out quickly. Like you said, I think that's going to be how they're going to attack it. But the nerves that I had about this game, maybe even 2 or 3 weeks ago, I don't as much anymore. I really feel good about the Niners here. The stats I gave about Prescott, I feel like this is just not a good matchup for him. Even if they do try to get the ball out quickly, Niners defense is still going to have success, I think, with the Cowboys offense.
Yeah. I read something the other day and it irritated me a little bit, but this is what Mike McCarthy wanted out of his offense. It's not that they're getting the ball out quicker because they've had injuries on the offensive line. No, this is what he wanted. You know, Mike McCarthy is a West Coast offense disciple, and they've taken to calling this the Texas Coast offense. And I'm like, get out of here. Like, no, you don't get to call it that. That's not, no, you're done. But we know that this 49ers defense had the most trouble against any opponent when they played the Rams, and the Rams in the first half specifically were getting the ball out very quickly. And the one concern that I have is if they start putting CeeDee Lamb in the slot, because what that tends to do to this 49ers defense is that they then shift Demo Lenore to the slot, and then that brings Ambry Thomas on the field. And I don't want.
You are terrified of Ambry Thomas football.
Yes, I do not want Ambry Thomas on this football field against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, like I said in our last episode, maybe that becomes Anthony Brown, the cornerback who played for 7 seasons in Dallas, and they signed 3 weeks ago. So he should be up to speed. But the other thing about this 49ers defense against the against the Cowboys offense is Deontay Lee, who I think used to be with the Ringer. I'm not sure who he's with now. He's a staff writer for The Athletic, but he's also a defensive coordinator for a high school team where he lives. And he quote tweeted Nate Tice, who I love. He's a part of the Athletic Football Show with Robert Mays. And Nate Tice said the 2023 49ers defense has only surrendered an explosive play, which is a run of 12 plus yards or a pass of 16 plus yards, on 4.76% of their plays. That is the lowest explosive play rate through the first 4 weeks since the NFL expanded to 32 teams in 2002. That's quite the stat. But Deontay quote tweeted that and said Steve Wilks was always a perfect fit with this group. And so I replied to that and I said, what about Wilks made him such a good fit with this particular defensive group? And he then quote tweeted that and said that he wasn't going to ask this defensive front to do anything other than what it's best at, playing fast and wreaking havoc. Because of that, he can be versatile on the back end. And that's what I think that we've seen through these first 4 weeks. And I think that's really where those second half adjustments have come in, right? Where in the first half, again, he's playing fairly vanilla. And if the Cowboys are gonna employ this quick passing game, then the 49ers are going to sit in zone all day. And Dak Prescott sucks against zone. Dak Prescott is really good against man coverage, but he sucks against zone. And I saw a stat and I wish I could find it again. I'm not sure where it is and I'll keep looking, but his passer rating against zone is so much lower than his passer rating against man, which is different than Brock Purdy. With Brock Purdy, he has a high passer rating against zone and man, which is beautiful. You're like, okay, there's really not a whole lot that you've done so far to really kind of rattle this kid, which again, we've talked about ad nauseum. It's super impressive. But my fear is what's going to happen in the first half. Is Dallas going to come out with a quick passing game? Are the 49ers defense, are they going to struggle against that like they did against the Rams, but then come out in the second half with some adjustments? I'm interested to see what happens. But, the other thing that I think is we don't talk about a lot is this, or I guess we mentioned it earlier, but it looks like the Cowboys have outscored their opponents by a lot, but 28 of their points have come on defensive or special teams touchdowns. And so offensively, they actually haven't been very impressive. And you saw they scored 16 against the Cardinals. The 49ers just put up 35. Brock Purdy was 20 of 21. Christian McCaffrey scored 4 touchdowns, had almost 200 yards from scrimmage. I don't think this Cowboys offense is capable of pouring it on this 49ers defense at all.
Yeah, and I'm just surprised, I guess, like you said, that I understand they're going to try to employ the quick passing game against the Niners. That makes sense. But when you look at, they go out and they add a Brandon Cooks, who's a downfield target.
Right.
They have all these explosive players, and they're still, maybe it's just a Mike McCarthy thing. I don't know. But it is a little surprising the way they played. Like you said, I think the scores, they've had 3 blowouts, but it has been more the defense and turnovers and defensive scores. So it's not like the offense is going up and down the field with these big explosive plays. So we'll have to see how they come out. Where I do worry a little bit is that front for the Cowboys. Now, Trayvon Diggs isn't there anymore. That's 18 interceptions in the last 2+ years or 3+ years or whatever it's been. It's a big play guy in the back end that they don't have. But that front really gave the Niners offensive line issues in the playoff game last year for at least 3 quarters until the Niners kind of wore them down. Purdy had a lot of pressure in that game. They forced him into a couple of bad throws that, frankly, the Niners got a little lucky on. So that worries me a little bit. And the big thing with the Niners is this year they haven't turned the ball over, right? 1 turnover in the 4 games. Dallas has forced 10 turnovers. And that's how they've been beating teams right now, is they're just turning the ball over and getting pressure. They have 14 sacks, which is around the top of the league. So that Niners offensive line is going to have to come and play. I do think that Kyle is going to really try to run the ball. Like we talked about James Conner, how he got around the tackles. Arizona ran for 222 yards against the Cowboys. I feel like that's the way the Niners are going to attack this. But if it does get into any kind of a drop back game, they have to protect. That's the key. Turnovers are the one thing to me in this game that can change it. The Niners have been great about not doing that, and they have to continue.
Yeah, I found it. Nick Wagner was the one that tweeted out. He had a thread just as like analysis of the game. And he said, Dak Prescott's QBR versus zone is 49.4, which is 18th in the league. And his QBR versus man is 90.2, which is third. The Niners play zone at the third highest rate in the league, which is 72.6%. So again, I think it is a chess match. It really is. It's two heavies going at it. I do not at all expect a 49ers blowout, but I do expect them to play well. And I am just very, very interested to see if this Dallas offense can do anything against this 49ers defense, because like we said, they really haven't been very impressive yet this season. Those blowouts are not because of the offense. Those blowouts have been because of their defense. So let's take a look at that side of the ball now, right? And you just said it. Your concern is that Dallas pass rush, and they harassed Brock Purdy all game in the playoff game last year. But it didn't rattle Brock, right? Because he still threw no interceptions. He didn't throw a touchdown, but Dak Prescott threw 2 interceptions and Brock Purdy threw none. And in a game where one turnover could be the difference, Brock Purdy did what Brock Purdy does, and that's take care of the football. That Dallas front is nothing to mess with. But one of the things that I think is interesting, and I think I brought this up on our last show, is that Brock Purdy has been getting the ball out quicker this season than he did at any point last season. Again, from Nick Wagner, this was 3 days ago. In 2022, Brock Purdy's average time of release was 2.93 seconds, which is not great. And just meant that he was holding on to the ball a little bit too long. So far this season, it's been 2.56 seconds. So knocking almost a half a second off of his time to release, which against a pass rush like Dallas, who leads the league in pass rush win rate, it's hard to say for me. That's going to be super important. But the other thing that's going to be super important is controlling the ball with Christian McCaffrey. The Dallas defense wasn't missing anyone on their line, wasn't missing anyone in their linebacking core. The only one they were missing was Trayvon Diggs, and they gave up 222 yards to James Conner and the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals are better than we thought they were, and they played well against the 49ers as well. I know it was 35-16. It doesn't look like it, but they did. They played well. And Arizona's offense is actually ranked, I think, in the top 10 still in DVOA, which is impressive. One of the things that the Cardinals did that I'm going to look for the 49ers to do is they ran directly at Micah Parsons. And I think that's a huge key. I think wherever Parsons is lined up is where that run needs to go, because Micah Parsons is a phenomenal player. He's a phenomenal pass rusher. He's not very big, right? He's quick. He is fast. He is otherworldly athletic. But if you get on him in the run game, he's not stopping the run. So that is where I think, for me, I think the key is running at Micah Parsons and continuing to get the ball out quickly, like Brock has done so far this season.
Yeah, this feels like a 25, maybe 25 plus touch game for McCaffrey for me. As much as they've leaned on him so far, I can see them really leaning on him again this game. And then maybe they back off a little bit after that. But this feels like all Christian all the time. Niners are going to attack them on the ground. You're just going to see McCaffrey with the ball in his hands constantly in this game. Brian, I'm looking at their schedule. Again, if they lose this game, I'm not going to go crazy, because I've been saying since the beginning of the season, this is a game Dallas has circled. It's going to be a tough game. If they lose it, I'm not going to go nuts by stretch of the imagination. But if they win this game, they might go to Thanksgiving undefeated. They really might. And I remember we're talking like, hey, are they going to be 5-3 in the break, 6-2? Where are we? Not to jump too far ahead, but you have this gigantic game Sunday night, and then you're at the Browns. Like you said, good defense, but
great defense
doesn't scare you. Minnesota Vikings, who can't stop anybody. The Bengals, where unless Joe Burrow makes a miraculous recovery between now and then, they just don't look like themselves. Burrow can't throw it outfield.
Yeah, what is that offense going to do against this 49ers defense?
Yeah, I just not. not worried there, at least at the way they're playing
right
currently.
now. Yeah.
Then you got a bye week. Jacksonville has not looked nearly as good as people thought that they were. They kind of look like a mess, to be honest with you. And the Bucs, who are frisky, but you saw what the Eagles did to them. When they play a really good team, I don't know that we really have to worry, a team like the Niners or the Eagles. So you look at that, you're talking 10-0 going into that rough stretch where you have to play Seattle twice, the Eagles and the Ravens. That's crazy. That's crazy. But I feel like, again, I don't want to get too far ahead, health permitting. This is positive Al. So enjoy it while you got it. We could be looking at 8-0 going into the bye, maybe 10-0 going into Thanksgiving.
Yeah. And, this is I said it with Damon. This is the biggest test the 49ers have faced this season, easily. And I don't think anyone would argue that. And part of that is because this defense is really good. So this is the best defense that Brock Purdy and the offense will have faced thus far. But one thing that I thought was interesting, friend of the show, Akash Anavarathan from Niners Nation tweeted this out today. The offensive DVOA of the 4 teams that the Cowboys have faced thus far this season, the Patriots are 19th, the Jets are 27th, the Giants are 32nd. They won all those games. The Cardinals are 6th, and they lost that game. The 49ers are second. They're ranked second in offensive DVOA behind, I believe, only the Bills. I believe they're ahead of the Dolphins. This is the best defense that the 49ers have faced, but this is easily the best offense that Dallas Cowboys defense has faced. And so it really is strength on strength right now. But to me, we see there the 49ers offense, I think, has the advantage over the Cowboys defense. And it might be a slight advantage, but the advantage that the 49ers defense has over this Cowboys offense, I think, is where the game is won. And so for me, that's the biggest difference in these teams, is that the 49ers have a top 10 offense and defense. The Cowboys have a top 10 defense and a pretty middling offense right now.
And I don't want to take anything away from the Cowboys. I have been giving them their flowers, but the Patriots, the Jets, and the Giants offenses are all atrocious.
Awful.
I know the Jets look a little better on Sunday night. Patriots are a mess. And the Giants, they have 2 touchdowns the entire season. The Giants made the Seahawks defense look like the 85 Bears on Monday night. I mean, they have a lot of problems. So this is going to be a test for Dallas. And frankly, Dallas is the team that needs to show that they can play and win these big games. The Niners have shown that they can do that. There's a lot of pressure on Dallas in this game, a lot. So I think that's again, if the Niners lose this game, it's like, all right, they're probably going to win the next 5 or whatever. It'd be 9-1. It's not the end of the world. If Dallas loses this game, you're 3-2. All of a sudden, you lost to maybe a decent Cardinals team. You lost to the Niners. You don't have Trayvon Diggs. There may be some more issues there. So I think more pressure on them for sure. My prediction, Brian, I do not think the 49ers will score 30 points. They're going to score 27 points, and they're going to win this game 27. I'll say 27-17. I think 27 was the 30-point streak breaks this week.
27 was what I had in my head as well, but I'm going to have to change that because we can't have the same score. So I do also think the 49ers are going to win. And like you said, this game is so much bigger for Dallas, not just in the scheme of this season, but psychologically, right? Again, this is the team that has knocked them out of the playoffs the last 2 years. Cowboys fans are irrationally confident about this game, which I think is funny. 49er fans are largely quiet because, again, we've won the last 2 times we met in the playoffs, knocked you out. Yeah. So yeah, this is much bigger. They're coming into this game, like you said, with Damon. The Cowboys are coming into this game like the 49ers will come into that Eagles game. But I don't think it matters. And this offense and this defense isn't, I don't think it's hit their stride yet. This offense obviously has. I think what's crazy is everyone on that offense believes that there's room to grow, which is wild because, again, they've scored 30 or more in the first 4 games. I also think that 30 streak breaks, but I would not at all be surprised if it doesn't. But I don't think that it will. And so I will say that the 49ers are going to win this game. Let's see, 26, which means this is a Jake Moody four field goal game. They're going to win 26 to, I'll say 20, 26-20, 49ers victory.
Close game. Yeah. It's going to be a fun one.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. It's a huge game Sunday night. It's going to be a lot of fun. Have some drinks, relax. Most people probably have the next day off. So I'm definitely going to be having some beverages and enjoying the game. So pay attention to my Twitter feed, I guess, by halftime, because
I can't wait to hear Chris Collinsworth just gushing about Brock Purdy.
Fuck yeah. It'd be vintage Collinsworth. Vintage Collinsworth.
Yes.
All right. We're out of here. For Brian, I'm Al.
Later.